So this evening, I'd like to offer this talk in honour of World Environment Day, which was on Saturday. And it's roughly called Gratitude and Care, Making Our Relations with the World Sacred Again. So, like many others here tonight, I feel a deep concern about the ecological situation that we're in and what it means for all the species on the earth. And, the potential changes that we're facing in the coming decades are quite sobering, to say the least. We only need to look at what's happened in this country regarding fires in the last 18 months. And then the unseasonal weather and flooding that's occurred, and then species loss, etc., etc. I don't need to go into all of that here, but things are happening at record rates, and it can be quite overwhelming at times. And at the same time, we've seen the declaration of a climate emergency by 11,000 scientists around the world, and the same thing now by 102 councils, I think it is, in Australia over the last year and a half or so, and organisations like the AMA. So there's actually, there's really heartening news, as well as, all the grassroots stories of what people, groups, communities are actually doing around the world to act in the face of climate crisis, the climate crisis that we're facing. And there is real hope in this news. But my question, I guess, tonight, in the context of this talk, is I'm reading Robyn Wall-Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, at the moment, and she asks this question: how in our modern world can we find our way to understand the earth as a gift again, to make our relations with the world sacred again? So that's what I'd like to roughly base this talk around tonight. So how can our meditative and Dharma practice inform our lives in such extraordinary times, so we can engage in the world as open-heartedly and courageously as possible in whatever forms that takes? And we'll all have different, very, very different responses to these times. And indeed, how do we actually take in the information that we're being fed on the growing rate of breakdown of natural places, the displacement and well-being of people, animals, plants, without collapsing into paralysis and despair, without losing hope or heart? And while the Buddha's teachings don't offer specific solutions to the actual problems of climate breakdown, obviously it just wasn't an issue in the Buddha's time 2,500 years ago. They do provide a powerful, radical and timeless framework for how to address and relate to the issues that we're facing. And in teaching a new way to understand how we suffer and a lot of the pain that we feel regarding the ecological emergency is there's a lot of suffering around this, grief and anxiety and despair. And the Buddha taught us ways to be with that suffering and to find release from that suffering. And he offered a path to live within ethical integrity, even in the face of such potential catastrophe and immense change. So we can see here already the intimate connection between kindness and gratitude, that there can't be one without the other. Sorry, I'm missing a page. So in the context of this talk, I'd like to explore gratitude that Robyn Wall-Kimmerer mentioned in that beautiful quote, as an expression of the Buddha's teaching on generosity and kindness, loving kindness, which then acts as a foundation for us to be able to enter the deeper layers of working with our pain and suffering. And then also it offers a foundation for us to be able to then act in the world effectively. So the word gratitude comes from the Latin words gratia, that means grace, kindness, and gratis, which obviously we know well means something that's freely given or given away or without charge. And sometimes we use gratitude in this sense to express a sense of appreciation for something we've received. And the Pali word for gratitude is katanyu, meaning knowing or recollecting what has been done when we're grateful to someone for a kindness that's been offered to us. So this is the second aspect of gratitude. And the Buddha said that a person of integrity is one who is grateful and thankful, and a person of no integrity is one who is ungrateful and unthankful. And the Buddha also said there are two kinds of people hard to find in the world. One who is first to do a kindness, and the other is one who is grateful for a kindness done and feels obligated to repay it. So yeah, this is what I was saying before. This is where we can see already the intimate connection between kindness and gratitude, and the connection between living ethically and gratitude. So a few years ago, I started cultivating a conscious practice of gratitude in really small ways to see what would happen. And it had a really strong impact on my life. So I would explain this impact as falling in love with the world again, and seeing the beauty and preciousness of the magnificent web of life that we're part of. And recognizing also the innumerable kindnesses that are done or that are being carried out and that are happening around us all the time and involve us all the time. And in turn, this falling in love with the world again fanned the flames of fire in me to then protect and care for all of this from this renewed feeling of love and connection. And this happened really simply, actually. By mindfulness is the key here. By mindfully noticing and feeling appreciation for what actually just appears in my life every day on a daily basis, things such as good health, a steaming hot cup of tea, dear friends, a bird landing in the tree outside my house, hot water coming out of my tap, a house to live in, etc., etc. I think it was the Christian mystic David Steindl Rast who says something like, if we really received all the gifts, everything that came our way as a gift, we'd just fall on the floor and cry or something. It's something along those lines. You know, if we really see everything as gift that enters our life every day, it can be quite awe-inspiring. And this is what was happening in my life as a result of cultivating a conscious gratitude practice. So as it became a focus, the awareness of gratitude expanded naturally to a wider appreciation for the connections between things and between beings, to an appreciation for the vast wonder and mystery of life, and the very, I would say, the beautiful, perfect imperfection of nature. That also included the times that I felt more contracted and rushed and antisocial and grumpy and fearful. So I started feeling gratitude for these appearings, these experiences as well. So essentially, I found that the gratitude practice allowed me to receive more of life, generally. So when we feel this appreciation in this way, we're essentially saying thank you. And the words thank you are so powerful because they immediately take us out of our narrow minded and self centered focus and connect us with others and with the world. They cut through our sense of separateness, and the words thank you help us express an intuitive knowing in our bones that we're intimately connected to all of this. And of course, at times it's really difficult when we're not um, feeling great, we're feeling low or anxious, that we can say those words and not feel them or not appreciate the connections that we can feel at other times. And it's really important to acknowledge that sometimes we can't tune into that sense of gratitude. Although it's also really heartening to know that our capacity for feeling appreciation is often a lot greater than we think. And there's a beautiful quote by A.A. Milne in Winnie the Pooh that goes, Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. And I think that's just such an uplifting quote, something that could be helpful on the fridge in the mornings, for example. Because sometimes when an emotional, psychological or physical pain is really strong, our hearts do indeed feel very small. And what I found with the gratitude practice, though, is that it can take just a tiny shift of consciousness, just a word or two in the mind, an internal saying to ourselves, "Thank you," for something to shift sometimes to a really surprising degree. Meister Eckhart said, "If the only prayer you said was thank you, that would be enough." So even in the middle of deep pain of some kind, simply saying thank you for a cup of tea or climbing into a warm bed or for an unexpected smile from someone in the street, for example, can offer care and kindness and such relief to a troubled heart and mind. And our experience of suffering in that moment can actually be released to quite a degree. And sometimes it's only a small degree, but it might be enough to shift our thinking. And yet we don't practice appreciation and gratitude to feel better or to paper over or bypass the messiness or the less comfortable aspects of our life. But rather we practice gratitude in this way in order that we develop a foundation of trust in life, of what Joanna Macy calls psychological buoyancy, that I would say really allows us to keep opening the lens of awareness to receive more parts of ourselves, so we can keep meeting life as it appears in each moment. An example of this is one day I laid in bed with a head throbbing from a migraine. It was incredibly uncomfortable and at times really quite overwhelming. But after a while, I realized that between the moments of feeling the pain strongly, I was also able to appreciate the steady rain falling outside. This was after a period of lots of dry weather, and I noticed that the soothing sound of raindrops on the roof and on the ground outside actually interrupted my experience of pain. And also the fact of the dry, warm bed that I was in at the time also interrupted those moments of pain. So I recognized that expanding awareness into this vaster space and opening that lens up wider again helped to aerate my experience. So, and in changing the focus in this way, and consciously feeling appreciation for the rain that was coming down outside, two things happened. Firstly, it broke open my perception of the solidity of my experience in that moment of migraine. So, you know, rather than this solid mass of pain overtaking me for minutes on end, I recognized that there were actually holes in my experience of pain. And that more accurately, there was a moment to moment flow of experience, and some of it was painful sensation, but actually a lot of it wasn't. So, around that previously contracted experience of mind, of pain and throbbing and tension, there was a softness in the heart that arose at hearing the rain, and the words thank you as they came up, a greater sense of connection to my surroundings happened once again. And the other thing that happened in that expanded space of awareness was the sense of self that had built up around my migraine and my throbbing head loosened and became less substantial. So the sense of this event happening to me, and this is, you know, a very familiar event for me. So it was, you know, there's a lot of woe is me story going on at that time that was very familiar to me and felt very like it was very fixed and that it was going to last for a very long time. Opened up to be just one part of a larger symphony of unfolding. So there was throbbing and heat, the sound of raindrops, the thought, relief for the earth, a thank you, and then a feeling of pain, and then a thought, bleak outside, and then recognizing that I was in a warm, cozy bed, another thank you, etc. So through this example, we can see hopefully how we give so much more authority to our experience than is necessary. And often this happens, of course, in the case of uncomfortable experience and experiences of pain, because we identify with the unpleasantness of it and we believe it's here to stay, and therefore we want life to be other than it is. And this is not to say that we don't continue to care for ourselves wisely, but by placing our experience in a wider field of awareness, of appreciation, with a less personal narrative going on, we allow our hearts to soften and open and relax into the flow of life a little more. And in cultivating gratitude as a practice, what also started coming alive for me was a sense of reverence and a feeling of deep respect and even awe in expressing gratitude for the tree on the corner of my street, or a dear friend in my life, or even a feeling of frustration. For example, I experienced a bowing down to the inherent value of their existence as part of the astonishing unfolding web of life in their own very particular and unique expressions. Rumi speaks to this when he says, if God said, Rumi, pay homage to everything that has helped you enter my arms, there would not be one experience of my life, not one thought, not one feeling, nor any act I would not bow to. And we know too that in so many Indigenous cultures, the sense of reciprocity and interdependence is integral to their experience of gratitude for all the ways nature supports and supports their existence and well-being, and vice versa. Because in this worldview, how could you possibly harm something or harm someone that you rely on for your well-being and that you love, and whose well-being is also dependent on your care? So in this sense, we could say that cultivating gratitude in our society could be a radical political act, a radical act for the environment in the face of such rampant consumerism and competition that we live in. Because if we're truly grateful for what we have already been given and what we're part of, what more is there need for? What is there need for anything else? So I'd say the more we orientate ourselves to kindness and gratitude, the more they arise naturally in our experience, like anything else we focus our attention on. And the second aspect of gratitude, which is that we are thankful to somebody for something, acknowledges the way or the ways in which we're indebted to countless beings whose gifts and kindnesses, and sometimes their huge sacrifices and hardships as well, contribute to our well-being. And on a global scale, the sacrifices made by other beings and natural environments for our consumer lifestyle is really becoming clearer all the time. It can be really uncomfortable to even acknowledge this, and is maybe not what we expect from a heartwarming practice like gratitude. But I'd ask, in this context, is it possible to just stay with this too, with as much courage as we can muster, to see the extent of our connection and our impact? Because if we think again about the meaning of katanyu, the Pali word for gratitude, knowing or recollecting what has been done, when I feel and see the vast web of action that's benefited me so deeply, and of course none of us can ever know the extent of those actions and the extent of that web of benefits. How do I respond is my question. The sense of indebtedness to innumerable beings can feel very strong, but we can't act effectively if we feel overwhelmed or paralyzed. And this is where gratitude can keep us connected to the web, because it is part of the web in balance. A practice of gratitude is part of the web in balance. When the web's in balance, there's ethical integrity, a real sense of interdependence, of reciprocity, of non-separateness. When we recognize that all of our actions have consequences for others' happiness as well as our own, there's a natural sense of a natural desire for goodwill for all. So practicing gratitude can really keep us grounded in a relationship of integrity as we navigate this emotional territory, and can really become a guide for our engagement in the world, to keep acting from a basis of love, of deep care and wisdom, and non-harming, rather than greed and ill will. So I'd just like to finish with a Thich Nhat Hanh quote. He says, "Anything you do for yourself, you do for the world. Don't think that you and the world are two separate things. When you breathe in mindfully and gently, when you feel the wonder of being alive, remember that you're also doing this for the world. Practicing with that kind of insight, you will succeed in helping the world."